Good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining us for IURC webinar number 14. Please feel free to write in the chat where you are joining us from and your name. So before beginning with the webinar, I would like to really briefly present myself. I am Aurélie Knecht. I am the project officer for the IURC Latin America program, which is an international cooperation program funded by the European Commission that seeks to promote the exchange of best practices and knowledge between European and Latin American cities and regions. I am also in charge of different pairings with Brazilian cities, including Essen and Fortaleza, that are here today with us in the webinar as panelists. So I will carry out the moderation in English, but you can also access live interpretation in Spanish and Portuguese through the different language channels that are available at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so now logistics is done. Let's start with the main part of the webinar. So the objective that we want to develop in this discussion is to share some inspiration about circular economy best practices that are focused on the reuse, recycling, and repair of electronic waste and other materials. I was saying that we're going to talk about these best practices of 3 international cases, San Diego, Fortaleza, and Essen, that will share with us some experience on the creation of recycling centers and related repairing initiatives and recycling initiatives to highlight some opportunities and challenges linked to upcycling in cities. I also want to mention that this webinar is quite special because it also seeks to provide an inspiring inspiration, a snapshot to the circular economy events that IURC will co-organize with the city of Fortaleza next week on May 4th and 5th. And this event holds a particular importance as it will be the first technical encounter of the EU Circular Economy Solutions series. So this is going to be a very important event with the different international experiences and cities present to highlight the relevance of international cooperation and the exchange of best practices for the transition towards more sustainable cities and regions. The relevance of this event is also linked to climate change and its effects on cities and regions on a global level, and how circular economy can appear in this regard as a solution to manage the impact of both industrial and individual practices on the environment. It thus allows to reconsider unsustainable consumption and production patterns, to understand the opportunity of reusing existing materials and inputs, and to create new products from that. In this regard, citizens' engagement and raising awareness about the relevance of recycling appears as fundamental to ensure that authorities' efforts are implemented successfully. In this regard, today's webinar will allow to shed a light on these areas, this topic, and hopefully it will inspire you all in taking similar action in your own city. So as mentioned today, the session is meant to open up a lively discussion and debate to share thoughts, ideas, inspiration around circular economy solutions. Therefore, we kindly invite you to write questions, comments, suggestions in the Q&A section that you can find in the bottom of your screen, and we will make our best to answer them during the webinar. So now let's go over the agenda very quickly, and then I'm gonna leave the floor to the panelists. So first, we're gonna have a short introduction from San Diego that's gonna present some best practices about recycling. Then we're gonna have Annika from Essen that will share with us some insights about repair cafes that they have in Essen. Then Victor will share with us best practices from Fortaleza about repair cafes and also a little bit about recycling of electronic wastes. We're gonna have a very short break with some questions and answers, and then close the webinar with the presentation of Felix on the recycling of electronic waste in Essen. Okay, so now we're all set. Don't forget that if you wish, you can also listen to the webinar in Spanish or Portuguese by selecting the right language channel at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so now enough talking. Now I'm gonna present very briefly Annika and leave her the floor. So Annika Lücking started studying environmental engineering and resource management at the Ruhr University Bochum. She completed her studies in cooperation with the city of Essen and graduated with a Bachelor of Science. Afterwards, she worked for 2 years at the Lower Emission Control Authority, and since 2020, she has also been working at the Lower Waste Management Authority in Essen. Her main task is the monitoring of companies with regards to waste law issues. So now, Annika, the floor is all yours.
Hello together. Yeah, I try to share my screen. One moment, please. I would like to give you a brief overview of the repair cafes here in Essen. But first, a brief overview of the city of Essen. The city of Essen is located in the federal state of North Rhine-Westphalia and has an area of 210 square kilometers with approximately 595,000 inhabitants. Essen is the European Green Capital 2017. The European Commission awarded this title to the city of Essen for its demonstrably high environmental standards and their targeted implementation. The objectives formulated in the application to become the European Green Capital are still being proposed today. The subject area of waste management is of great importance for the city, along with others. The repair cafes make a contribution to waste avoidance. The graphic on the slide showing the locations of Essen's repair cafes provides us an initial overview and makes it clear that the cafes are spread across the entire city area from north to south. The majority of the repair cafes are run thanks to volunteers initiatives and thus offer the opportunity to have minor repairs carried out on site. This makes it possible to continue using appliances instead of disposing of them, thus avoiding waste. In addition, there are other non-profit initiatives in the city area that offer, for example, the repair of bicycles. I would like to introduce the repair cafes with 2 examples. In example 1, the organizer and sponsor of the repair cafes is a non-profit enterprise, which is also a municipal company. Whether it's a coffee machine, printer, auto electrical appliance, citizens can bring their defective electrical appliance here and have them repaired by the participants. The company has set itself the task of accompanying and individually supporting unemployed people and people threatened by unemployment. At present, 30 participants with very different professional backgrounds and life histories work in the repair cafes and perform various tasks according to their abilities and under supervision. Anyone who brings a defective device first met the participants in the administration area and fills out an order sheet with them, including the customer's contact details and information about the defective device. Then the device is passed on to the next working groups. Another working group researches repair instructions and necessary spare parts on the internet. If spare parts are needed, the staff informs the advisors, the customer. The customer is responsible for purchasing and financing the spare parts. A third team repairs the defective electrical appliance. The customer does not have to pay anything for the actual repair by the staff. Before being returned to the customer, a safety check to the technical equipment is carried out by a certified supervisor. The objective of the repair cafes are manifold. In addition to the sustainability objectives of avoiding waste and saving money for new purchases, it is also about a chance of perspective for the participants. By accompanying and individually supporting the participants, they are given initial access to the labor market. The Repair Cafe gives you the opportunity for professional reorientation and offers the chance to come into contact with people. The second example is a Repair Cafe organized by the local church community, which was founded in 2015. A total of 14 volunteers work here. Most of them are technical skilled engineers. Citizens can bring their defective electrical appliance here every third Saturday afternoon on the month and have them repaired by the volunteers for a small donation. Anyone can also simply come by to eat cake or drink coffee, and the proceeds will also benefit the youth work for the parish. The objectives of these repair cafes are also diverse. Here too, it's about the idea of sustainability, repairing electrical appliance, and thus avoiding waste. As a side effect, the cafe aims to be easy on people's wallets so that people on low incomes can also benefit from it. Anyone who wants to can donate something and thus support the youth work in the parish. In addition, the Repair Cafes offers participants the opportunity to talk to other citizens from the neighborhood. I hope I have been able to give you a brief overview of the Repair Cafes in our city. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Annika. I think it's really interesting to see these kind of initiatives because it's very organic, you know, and everybody has access to that, and because some people don't have the skills to do that, and this is also a big problem for the recycling of different kind of electronic waste that we might have. So I think to complement that and to understand a bit more of different recycling strategies that we can have, we're gonna see now the experience of San Diego on different aspects, and I'm gonna shortly introduce Shelby and Ken that's gonna share with you this presentation. So Shelby Buso is an experienced sustainability director with a demonstrated history of working in the nonprofit organization management industry and environmental law and policy. She has strong community and social services professional skills and environmental awareness. She's a policy analyst, grant writing, environmental policy analyst, and she works at the city of San Diego. We also have Kenneth Prue, who leads a creative and high-performing team that oversees the planning, development, and implementation of citywide efforts to achieve state-mandated waste diversion goals and also long-term solid waste management needs, including the city's Zero Waste Plan of San Diego, with recycling ordinances and a wide variety of waste reduction and recycling programs. He is a San Diego State University graduate with a degree in public administration and has been working at the city for 24 years. So now Shelby and Ken, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It's great to be here. As mentioned, I'm Shelby Buso. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer with the City of San Diego. I'm in the Sustainability and Mobility Department, and just want to give you a quick overview of our recently adopted Climate Action Plan and where the conversation today can lead. So in 2015, San Diego adopted an old plan, but then we realized that we needed to step it up a little bit. In 2022, we decided that net zero emissions by 2035 would be our new goal. And in order to achieve that net zero goal, it's definitely going to take a combination of action at all levels of government, federal, state, and local. So this top dotted line here represents the city's projected emissions with no action. So if we did nothing, but then we wanted to take into account in our modeling what federal, state, and regional actions could do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's where you see the wedge beginning to form here. And then in order to reach our goal that we knew was necessary in San Diego, we broke down here with each colored wedge the projected greenhouse gas emissions reductions from each CAP strategy. The green arrow then at the bottom here highlights the additional reductions that would be realized through strategy 6, which is our emerging climate solutions and innovation category. And so while we're doing a lot here on the local level, like I said, we are proud to be in a state that really has some ambitious plans as well for climate action. The state of California, where San Diego is, has a goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030 or 2045, and plans are being developed across multiple state agencies that will allow us to have access to more state funding and others. At this point, it's around the $50 billion climate investment that the state budget has made to hit this ambitious goal. We define climate equity in San Diego as addressing historical inequities suffered by people of color, allowing everyone to fairly share the same benefits and burdens from climate solutions, and attain full and equal access to opportunities regardless of one's background or identity. And I say that just because I want to emphasize how important it is to us in the city of San Diego to incorporate equity into the development of our climate action plan. And Ken will give a good example of that. On the right here, you see a map of our city as shaded by our climate equity index, which accounts for a lot of different disparities that we acknowledge in our climate equity space, so that we realize where we need to do the most investment and act the fastest. And again, you know, we wanted to make sure that this plan was informed and reflected the voices of our citizens. And so we collected responses from over 4,000 residents to make sure that we were adequately representing San Diego and what they wanted. And they made it clear through that engagement that climate action must be thoughtfully interwoven into the needs of our communities, with special focus given to air quality, public health, and advancing our city's economic goals. We also recognize that the ambitious climate action we're mentioning here can only be achieved with a strong workforce and high quality job opportunities to support it. So as we progress towards net zero, we're going to pair climate policies with investments in other technologies, building practices, and workforce development programs where possible. Like I said, too, residents were pretty clear that they were severely impacted by poor air quality and wanted to see significant steps by the city to address this. And so we actually added a clean air section to our climate action plan, which you know, actually helps us, especially in certain communities like our port community, to decarbonize buildings and increase zero emissions vehicles. And we've specifically even committed to planting 40,000 new trees in specific communities of concern, as we call it, by 2030. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kenneth Prue, from the Environmental Services Department, because he's really focused on the efforts I felt were relevant for the conversation today, which is all found in Strategy 4, our Circular Economy and Clean Communities, which strategy, which maintains a 90% waste diversion rate, as well as methane capture from our landfill and wastewater treatment facilities. And we couldn't do that without the partnership of our department. So Ken, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Shelby. I'll start with some slides to provide some background on the city's solid waste management system. And we provide cart-based collection to 285,000 residences on public streets, primarily single family home and some multifamily. If you go next slide. Our franchise system is a non-exclusive system with 21 franchises held by 8 companies and their subsidiaries. There are currently 5 Class 1 haulers who are authorized to collect up to 75,000 tons of solid waste per year, and the remaining 16 agreements are for collecting more than 75,000 tons per year and are held by companies EDCO, Republic Services, WM, and their subsidiaries. Next slide, please. Our franchise agreements are particularly important for the city's compliance with recycling mandates and goals because our franchises handle about 70% of the waste collected in the city. This includes all commercial properties and most multifamily properties, and the city collects the other 30% from residences that we service. The city operates Miramar Landfill, which is a Subtitle D landfill that accepts approximately 900,000 tons of waste per year. The landfill is expected to close in 2030. We also operate the Miramar Greenery Composting Facility, which recycles over 100,000 tons per year of yard trimmings, clean wood waste, and food scraps. We have a contractor-operated recycling buyback center that accepts California Redemption Value beverage containers, cardboard, paper, and scrap metals, as well as items that are prohibited from landfill disposal, including large appliances such as refrigerators, washers, dryers, hot water heaters, as well as televisions, computers, and other electronic items. We also have a household hazardous waste transfer facility, which accepts hazardous waste from city residents. Our region includes substantial private infrastructure for composting and mulching, and a recently developed anaerobic digestion facility for commingled yard trimmings and food scraps. There are multiple material recovery facilities for processing commingled recyclables, such as cardboard, paper, plastic, and glass, and facilities that accept source-separated or commingled construction and demolition debris. There are also 2 large privately owned landfills and multiple solid waste transfer stations. The city has created initiatives to increase waste diversion and recycling. This includes mandatory recycling ordinances, which are the City Recycling Ordinance, which requires recycling by residents, businesses, and special events, and the Construction and Demolition Debris Diversion Deposit Ordinance, where a refundable recycling deposit is paid on the issuance of new construction, alteration, and demolition permits. This also includes the city's Zero Waste Plan, which was established in 2015. Under the Zero Waste Plan, the idea is to reconsider how we think of our discards, minimize the amount of waste we generate, reuse and recycle as much as possible, and landfill as little as possible. We think of this as a continuous improvement process, always looking for ways to increase waste diversion. When we look at the city waste characterization study for materials in the landfill, we can easily see that organic waste is 39% of what San Diegans throw away. In addition, California Senate Bill 1383 identified methane as a major short-lived climate pollutant, and landfills emit 20% of the state's methane. There were several key recommendations identified in the Zero Waste Plan to aid in reaching our initial 75% goal. All of these efforts have either been implemented or are in process. Our franchise agreements and city recycling ordinance have been amended multiple times since the adoption of the Zero Waste Plan. Multiple efforts to increase organic waste recycling are underway. The last remaining piece, the development of a resource recovery facility and transfer station, is also underway. This facility will be located at the Miramar landfill with the goal to recycle as much as possible. The facility will be designed with operational flexibility in mind, and the initial focus will be on self-haul loads delivered by residents and businesses. The implementation of these programs should have a positive and measurable impact on our citywide diversion rate over the next few years, similar to what we saw in 2007 when the city's mandatory recycling ordinances were put into effect. There's currently a heavy push to increase organic waste recycling. The programs being implemented are to ensure the city complies with State Senate Bill 1383 and directly align with the strategies in the Zero Waste Plan and Climate Action Plan. These are programmatic elements required under SB 1383. Each box, the green check, is complete. Each box, the green circle, is complete but ongoing in effort. The last remaining pieces are providing citywide organic waste collection and implementing the organic processing facility project to ensure all organic waste collected can be composted now and into the future. In 2022, our City Council adopted the most comprehensive changes to the City Recycling Ordinance since it was adopted, which creates our enforceable ordinance, which is a major requirement for SB 1383. We've also adopted new franchise agreements, and our franchise haulers are providing organic waste services to their customers. Our education materials are developed and translated into Spanish, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. We have also made substantial progress with our marketing consultant to develop a roadmap for messaging and behavior change. Communities around San Diego started seeing this campaign in action in January, and I will provide additional information in upcoming slides. Our education materials are clear and provide all the information an individual could need to understand the program and the value of participating in it. We've already presented to numerous community planning groups, town councils, and various stakeholders, and continue to develop and schedule workshops and presentations as we roll out our organic service to our city service customers. We're focused on ensuring that everyone has the tools and feels comfortable to be successful. So we are hosting in-person and virtual workshops at various libraries and recreation centers with focus on areas with low climate equity index scores. Our team has continued to develop and expand our outreach efforts to our comprehensive organic waste marketing campaign, and the campaign's off to an excellent start. Our focus is on awareness building and behavior change, and the audience is everyone living or working in the city, including city and franchise service customers. As shown in the upcoming slides, there is a wide range of efforts, and examples are provided in upcoming slides. There are numerous measurement and feedback components as well. And one thing I wanted to mention is that our collection services team worked on a special project with YouTube star Michelle Kerr for a number of months, and it was uploaded to YouTube on March the 6th. Michelle has 3.5 million subscribers, and she does a series of videos called Challenge Accepted, where she learns how to do difficult or challenging things. One of her videos even featured her training to be a San Diego police officer. In this video, she trains to be a refuse collector with 2 of our collection drivers. It covers a full range of refuse, recyclable materials, and organic waste collection, as well as the dangers of improper disposal of lithium batteries. These are some highlights of our new campaign website. And these are our new billboards. The left one is the first billboard we used, and the one to the right is the one that's the next one being used. These are some bus shelter ads with various messaging. And now I'll go ahead and move on to some points about our rollout for city service customers. And we're very excited because our organic waste rollout is exactly what was envisioned in our zero waste plan, and we're so happy to be able to implement it. As a reminder, all of our food and yard trimmings will go in the green cart shown here, and all of our city service properties will receive a kitchen pail with a label of acceptable materials. We have several goals during our container delivery and rollout phase, and we used our climate equity index to determine which neighborhoods and service day would receive new service first. The customers with a score of very low on the climate equity index received the first green carts and the new service. This approach allows specific community messaging with our marketing consultant and ensures entire neighborhoods and communities receive service within a few weeks of each other. Our goal is to make the transition to weekly organic waste services as easy as 1, 2, 3, but this is a huge effort, and no matter how well planned, there will be hiccups and issues to overcome. Our composting facility, the Miramar Greenery, is ready to receive all the organic waste collected and continue to produce high quality recycled products to fulfill the procurement goals under SB 1383. With that, we're going to transition though, because our existing greenery has serviced our city and region for 30 years, but with regulations that have changed and that will continue to change and become more stringent for these types of facilities, our Environmental Services Department is proud to spearhead a facility that can implement enhanced stormwater protection and provide cost-effective management of our organic materials over the next 30 years by implementing our new organics processing facility project. This facility differs from existing greenery in several key ways. It will have an enclosed tipping building to receive the compressible waste and it also prevents rain from collecting it or contacting it during the processing, and it will further control any odors. The facility will also have an impervious operating deck and bunker walls for our covered aerated pile composting system and gore covers. Lastly, the new facility will be located off of the active landfill portion, allowing West Miramar landfill operations to proceed and eventually close without impacts to the composting operation. We're really excited to establish all of these programs and efforts citywide, directly supporting our climate action plan and zero waste plan goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you, Shelby. I think that your experience is also very inspiring to see how it is very relevant to involve the citizens in each step of a very important goal that many cities have in common, to reduce emissions, but also to be more resilient and to integrate circular economy in different sectors, in different areas of urban life. And I think that's what you showed us with the different initiatives that you are developing, and also how you prioritize these initiatives in certain areas and with different criteria, can be also very, very inspiring. So before discussing it further and answering maybe some questions, so please don't forget to put your comments and questions in the Q&A if you have some doubts or something you want to share with our panelists. So before that, we're gonna have the presentation of Victor that represents Fortaleza to share some more insights about circular economy best practices. So Victor has a master's degree in transportation engineering and a degree in civil engineering from the Federal University of Ceará, as well as an undergrad from the École Centrale Nord and additional training at Johns Hopkins University. He worked for 7 years in the area of urban mobility and road safety at the Fortaleza City Hall and coordinated the Sustainable Accessibility Plan of the city. He is currently the Vice President of the Foundation for Science, Technology, and Innovation of Fortaleza. And as we mentioned before, he will be part of the event we're going to organize next week on circular economy. So thank you very much, Victor. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Annie. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, sharing this practice with you, and of course, learning with you. Thank you for inviting us for the all IURC team, and congratulations for this webinar. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I will present specifically about the technological waste, the electronic waste. It is a strategy that we are starting in Fortaleza, which is called Technological Reconditioning Center. It's our TRC. But before I start, I would like to give you a little context from Brazil, for the national context. Brazil, everybody knows, is huge. Our country ranks the 5th in the world in electronic waste production, but only 3% of this waste is collected to be recycled or discarded. So we have a huge challenge in face of us in our country. Since 2010, we have a national policy on solid waste, which brings some articles regarding electronic waste. We also have, in this policy, it shows all the flow of the reverse logistics system from the electronic waste, since the disposal by consumers, the receiving and temporary storage, transport to consolidation points, until the environmentally adequate final destination. And also in Brazil, we have this association. It's called ABRE. It's an association for recycling and electrical and electronic products and household appliance. But these associations, they are more focused on the private sector. So there's not a huge, there's a few importance in the cities, in the municipalities. So that's why we should have our own strategies in the city. So our municipal context, Fortaleza is also a big city in Brazil. Is the 5th biggest city in Brazil with 2.7 million people. And we have a huge solid waste production. It is about 130,000 tons per month. And of course, it's a huge, like all the others big cities in the world. And we also have our legislation about this issue. The more recent legislation from 2022, and according with this law, we have the obligation to implement a network of electronic reconditioning and recycling centers covering all the regions in the city, with specific focus on the reuse and recycling of this kind of equipments. So besides the low recycling rate of electronic waste in Fortaleza in Brazil, we also have another problem, another issue, which is the digital inclusion. So the digital inclusion of low-income youth is also a huge challenge to be overcome in our city. There are some research that shows that while 95% of A-class have some kind of computer or smartphone to work or to study, when we look to DE class, this number is only 14%. So we have a long way to go. So that's why we talked about the Technological Reconditioning Center. This center is created to answer that question. So how can we connect citizens and companies that have electronic equipment to dispose with low-income youth who needs computers and equipment to study, and of course to give the environmentally adequate waste disposal. So our TRC is in the center to answer that question. It achieves 10 SNGs from UN, and in addition to have components to stimulate the circular economy, specifically of electronic waste, and to promote social inclusion, the TRC are also training young people for the technology market. So that's why we have these three main pillars in our TRC. The first one is training, and is teaching youngs and to teaching young people how to repair computer and smartphone and etc. To promote digital inclusion and of course the sustainability. So the first pillar, the training, we are training people in computer maintenance and assembly. We are sorting and testing process, reconditioning computers, smartphones, notebooks, and we have this goal to reach more than 5,000 youngs per year. The second pillar, the digital inclusion, we are the reconditioning computers will be donated to young participants of our programs in the city hall, and of course to the public schools and social organizations. We have this goal to recondition and donate almost 2,000 computers per year. And finally, the equipment that cannot be reconditioned will be donated to waste picker associations in order to improve income generation. So we are expecting an average of 5,700,000 kilos, like 57 tons of waste per year to donate for these associations so that they can sell this waste to the industry. So we already started a pilot project in our city. Fortaleza is split. It's divided in 12 regions. So we have a goal to implement one TRC in each region. We are starting the first one. It's near the beach here. These are some pictures of the space. There are just a few months that we started to its operation. And this first month, we already have these numbers. We completed 5 classes of teaching. which means 30 young people who are already trained. We designated 500 kilos of waste to waste picker associations, and we have already 15 reconditioned computers that are already ready to be donated. And for the expansion of this project, we are already searching for sponsors and calculating the budget, all the feasibility studies. We have a goal. Our mayor give us this goal to implement 1 TRC in each region in the city. And we calculated all these indicators, all these goals to reach. For 48 class per month, 480 training students, and about 150 computers reconditioned per month. And you can see the totals when we consider 12 TRC in our city. So we have a lot of challenge. We have a lot to learn with you. We are just on our pilot project. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Victor. I think that your presentation could show everyone why we decided actually to have our events about circular economy in Fortaleza, because you have such nice projects, pilots, initiatives, and what is really also impactful and meaningful is that you always try to connect environment with social inclusion goals, which can be very fundamental, as we could also see with the other presentations. So I don't know if someone has a question, a comment, something that you want to say before we go with the last presentation. No? Okay, I have one, just one, and then I'm gonna leave the word to Felix, because I think that it's important to note how all the three experiences had this component of training and capacitation and job creation. And this is not something that I had in mind when during preparing for this webinar and thinking about the topic, but it makes a lot of sense also to use this very big wave of trying to change the economy towards more recycling and upcycling of materials and make new jobs, because so many other kind of jobs will disappear. For example, the waste pickers in landfills. If you don't have a landfill anymore, they're not going to have a job anymore. So this is very interesting and important to have these big training components in the circular economy solutions or strategies. So I wanted to ask you all, I don't know if someone wants to start answering, how did this strategy developed and what was the incentives behind it? How did it grow over time? Can you maybe tell me more about this topic? I don't know who wants to start your side. Victor, Shelby.
I was just, go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, you can go first, Shelby, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, in the US, one of our most valuable partners in the climate movement is the labor unions. And that, you know, they are really interested and active in the conversation. And it's one that we enjoy, you know, brainstorming every once in a while, just to make sure that we're incorporating the right language, that we aren't just taking account or taking credit of jobs, but these are actually really high quality jobs that we are thoughtful about, because as we implement new policies, we realize the impact goes beyond just greenhouse gas emissions reduction, but actually changes our society quite a bit. and has a huge economic impact. So we include it in our annual reports, as well as also on the front end, asking questions to prevent any sort of unintended consequences, like you said, that when we could envision like a reduction in a job force, we want to make sure that we're replacing it with something equal and or better.
Thank you, Shelby. Victor, you wanted also to comment?
Yes, just a quick comment. Your question is really great, Aurélie, because it's directly related to context from Latin American and Caribbean cities, for example. We have a huge challenge of social inclusion. We have, for example, we can find in European cities waste speakers, for example, but this is a reality from the cities of Latin America and of course, African and Asia. So it is important to develop actions regarding those people. We have a lot of challenge, urban mobility challenge, waste management challenge, but in all these policies, in all these issues, we have to consider the point of the social inclusion. So these projects of TRC started as a strategy for a circular economy, but we saw the opportunity to engage people, young people, and to teach them how they can get a job. We know that the jobs are changing in the world. We have a huge program here that it's focused on teaching and training young people to become developers, designers, all these themes of technological market. And we saw this opportunity to put together just two policies: the waste management, circular economy, and social inclusion. So it's really important for our city.
Thank you, Victor. I think you summarized my points a bit better than I did before. It's made it clear, and it's very important also for Latin American cities. But as we could also see from Essen, even if it's maybe a slightly different angle, they also had this very nice program for unemployed person to give them a job, which can be very important also in European aging economies that somehow can lack employment opportunity in some sectors of work also. So before discussing it further, maybe we can have our last presentation to have the complete picture, and then be able to have a small debate, discussion, and share some ideas. So our last part will be given by Felix Schaffland from Essen, who will share some more insight about the recycling of electronic wastes in particular, to have a more specific focus on this topic that we touched in all the presentations that we had until now. So Felix Schaffland has a degree in environmental engineering and resource management from the Ruhr University in Bochum. He completed further training as an environmental inspector. Since 2021, Felix Schaffland has been working at the Lower Emission Control Authority, and it's part of the Environmental Office of the City of Essen. His main task is the monitoring and approval of plans. So Felix, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Aurélie, and to the speakers we heard. Today, I would like to give you a brief overview to e-waste recycling in Germany. Parts of my small presentation are the handling, the legal basis, the objectives, the disposal, as well as problems with e-waste. The improper handling of electronic waste can have negative effects on the environmental and people's health. Electronic waste contains secondary raw materials that can be recovered from electronic equipment and feed into the circular economy, as well as toxic and environmentally hazardous substances. This must be disposed of in an environmentally sound manner. The Electrical and Electronic Equipment Act regulates the placing on the market, taking back and disposal of electrical and electronic equipment in Germany. And it's called Electro-G. Oh, sorry. It calls Electro-G, yes. The legally established waste hierarchy in the Circular Economy Act defines the order in which waste must be disposed of. On the top of the waste must be prevent. Then come reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and dispose of waste in descending order. This can be transferred to electronic waste as well. The objective is to protect human health and the environment, to conserve natural resources. The reduction of electronic waste and the efficient recovery of secondary raw materials are fundamental to this. The Electrical and Electronic Act regulates, among other things, the different rights and obligations of producers, merchants, municipalities, certified primary treatment plants, and consumers. Electrical equipment must be produced on such a way that reuse is already taken into account during production. Before a producer places electrical equipment on the market, he must register with the registration office. This must be done, among other things, so that it's known how many electrical devices are in circulation and so that recycling rates can be monitored. Consumers are not allowed to dispose of electrical devices with household waste. Electrical devices from private households must be exempt free of charge by the municipalities at collection points. Producer must be collect them there and dispose of them in a professional and environmentally sound manner and certified plants. Larger traders of electronic equipment are obligated to take back waste equipment free of charge. And consumers should remove batteries and rechargeable batteries as well as lamps in advance. The devices must be collected and stored in a non-destructive and unbreakable manner. In such certified primary treatment plants, electrical equipment must be sorted by product type after delivery. Afterwards, the functionality of the electrical equipment must be tested. If the devices is working, it must be prepared for use. If it no longer works, the devices must be freed from harmful substances, which must then be disposed of in an environmentally friendly manner. Then the secondary raw materials such as metal and plastics are recovered from the equipment and separated from each other. On the last slide, I list some of the problems and challenges we face in relation to e-waste. The increasing amount of e-waste, electronic waste that is too seldom handled in recycling centers, and proper disposal with household waste, which means that the collection and the recycling rates are not reached. And the incorrect disposal with and the illegal disposal of electronic waste in the countries. Yeah, I hope I have been able to give you a small impression of e-waste as handled and recycled in Germany. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Felix. So now we have the whole picture, because we could see also the relevance of all the work that is done with the Repair Cafés, the recycling center, the different initiatives in San Diego, that also include an emphasis on recycling these kind of materials and devices that can be really harmful to the environments. Also because their production requires a lot of energy, a lot of inputs, so recycling them and reusing them for another purpose is very important. Also disposing it correctly is very important. So now, Felix, maybe if you could stop sharing your screen, we can have the discussion. So Kirsten is also with us. Thank you, Felix. Kirsten is also with us from Essen to accompany Annika and Felix in answering questions, in being part of the discussion. She works also at the Emission Control Authority in the Environmental Department. So now I invite you again to write your questions in the Q&A. Today we have a very shy audience, but no worries, I have a lot of questions for you already prepared. So first of all, I would like to know, being inspired a bit by the last slide of Felix's presentation, what were the main challenges that you faced in your cities for to implement an efficient strategy to sort different materials and then recycle them? Because this is the first step. Now, how do you convince the population to sort adequately different materials and not to put it in the wrong bin? So for example, also that in San Diego you have different flyers in different language educational campaigns. I know that in Essen we have something similar, but maybe you can tell me a bit more about the challenges that you faced in this process. I don't know, maybe from San Diego you want to start talking about this aspect.
Oh, sure. The behavior change is the hardest part for any program. And so for a lot of our efforts, especially our new organic waste recycling efforts, it's really to find new ways to engage people, to connect, because there's some people that are easy to reach out to and they want to do it and they want to participate. But for the average person just trying to get through the day and just get through their life, the daily grind and things, they how do you get their attention and get them to understand and to participate? And so we've tried to make the messaging very easy and very clear and on a lot of different platforms, including social media, but really using a lot with visuals. So with images or graphics, and just really trying to catch their eye and make it really easy to understand. And it's really a generational thing on a lot of things. So we do a lot with the youth in the schools and really try to help them learn at an early age, and then they'll go home and help inform their family members. And we find that especially in our more diverse communities, that it really is with the community and with their families, and just finding the way to connect with everyone.
Thank you, Kenneth. I think it's really on point, your answer, that it should start from the younger generation too. And I know, in fact, that in Essen, they have something like this, a similar program that focuses on young people from kindergartens in schools, to actually raise awareness on these topics. Maybe Kirsten, if you want to maybe comment on this point.
Yes, I totally agree with Ken. It's very important to change the behavior of the people, and it's really hard work. So I think one other aspect next to the education of the young children and the youth is to make it really quite easy for the customer to give back the broken electronic devices. And this could be done like we have the big markets who are obliged to take back the electronic devices. Like when the people go there shopping, they can give back their machines, their toasters or something like that. And another thing is that we have mobile trucks which collect in the districts. There is a waste calendar, and everyone of the city can see when this mobile truck is at the district and can bring there the devices. So short ways for the citizens.
Thank you, Kirsten. That's very, very interesting. We discussed that also with Fortaleza, with Victor in a couple of instances, because your pairing, your collaboration, for the ones that don't know, Essen and Fortaleza are working on circular economy and waste management. And one of the main points that always was discussed is how to educate people and raise awareness about the importance and relevance of recycling. And I know that Victor, at some point, someone mentioned something about also in school, you have this program to recycle electronic waste, no, or something like this. Maybe you could mention that briefly.
Yeah, sure. I will agree. I agree with Kenneth and everybody. The behavior changing, it's the key of this process. In Fortaleza, we learn a lot with the urban mobility area, how to change behavior in order to get better results. I'm going to give you an example for another area to tell you how we are working with the waste management. But in the road safety in our city, we decrease our number of deaths in the city by the health. So we had something like 400 deaths per year, and currently we have less than 200. To get these results, we had to work with a lot of actions in awareness campaigns, enforcement, new infrastructures, all these actions in order to change behavior. We are giving the same approach to the waste management. So we want to increase our number of recycling. We want to reduce the irregular waste points for disposal in our city. This is a huge problem. And for that, we are like 4 pillars of actions. The first one is new infrastructures, it's innovative actions. The TRC is an example of an infrastructure to change the perception of the society, and of course to induce some kind of behavior change. The second pillar is awareness campaigns and bring to the schools these actions. We have a project. It is still a pilot project, but we are working with organic waste, organic recycling in the schools with biodigesters, so the children can use the food waste and put in a biodigester, and this generate gas for the school kitchen. So the children are learning the importance that the waste have value, is not just trash. And finally, we are working with a lot of data infrastructure in our city. A lot of data it was in the paper in the waste management in our city. And finally, we are working with enforcement. It is important. We are using cameras in our city, cameras in vehicles to see people that are practicing some bad actions for putting trash on the streets, for example. So all these actions they have to to happen together in order to change the behavior in our city, in our citizens. So in summary, it's that it's a lot of challenges, but we have to face this with all these actions together.
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, you have a very interesting and wide panel of actions that can illustrate that we will indeed see the biogas digester in our visit next week, I believe. So for the ones assisting that will be in the visits, you can have a concrete example of what Victor just said. So before moving on, we have a very interesting comment and question from our colleague Ronald Hall from the DG Regio. So he said, I'm going to read it. So he says, Felix raises some key points. What more should be done at national and international level to stop recycling being undertaken in poor countries with low level of social protection, so that cities have more incentive to do this important work themselves? Are we moving fast enough to stop built-in obsolescence in electronics? The EU's decision to insist on a single charging cable was a significant move. In the meantime, the presentations show just how much work is placed on the cities to deal with the problems from poor regulation. So this is a complex topic, but maybe someone has a comment on this point. How is the role in cities to deal with this very big task? And what are their responsibilities? Or maybe you want to answer a different aspect of this question and comment that I just read. I don't know who has a comment, maybe to reframe it. How do you tackle this big responsibility as a city? So we saw, for example, that in Essen you have a different structure of law that insists on reducing. So the first one was reducing, Felix, right? I think so. And then etc. So this is one way of doing. You have, for example, in San Diego, the different objectives, and the number 4, I guess it was more on the circular economy. So how did you approach that? How you try to share some solution about that?
I can just at least comment briefly on some of our modeling, because I think it is an interesting question and a really thoughtful conversation to delve into, and probably something we don't even have time to really get into the details. But we try to acknowledge, and I think I also saw everybody saying we represent fairly large cities that are well resourced. So we have to acknowledge, first of all, that we have that privilege and ability to dedicate, like we all have staff that are working on this, and the way we present our commitment is that it is super ambitious compared to a lot of other cities, but that it was a moral imperative for us to do this because we are a large city and because we calculate it based on our fair share globally to contribute to the reduction in climate change because of things like the Paris Agreement and others that help kind of keep us in check to say not everybody's going to be able to do as much. And so we have to maybe do a little bit more because we can and because we should. And I think that's just, the language that we use is helpful to acknowledge that when we say this is based on our fair share contribution to the reduction in climate impact or climate change. And that's how we talk about it and approach it, because we are a big city. And so it's hard for me to speak on behalf of a small city and what they would need to get there. But I think it's fair to say that we acknowledge we are a big city and we need to do more because we can.
Thank you, Shelby. You're right. It's a big work, but that's true that the size of a city and its resources do matter. But also what we could see in this webinar is that small actions can have actually very big impacts on the long term when it's done with the right incentives and the right education message, no? And as Joanna says in the comments, so Joanna is from Fortaleza. She's a Victor's colleague that will host us next week. The initiative that you have to bridge a bit the gap between all the young people that don't have access to technology, because this is also one part of the big problem, no? The big inequalities in people consuming too much and other people having less, and rebalancing maybe this inequality, in the face of electronic devices can be another inspirational solution that you presented in Fortaleza. We have a final question from Rafael that says, what are the insights that you have on the different approaches of each project presented today on the topic of circular economy and e-waste refurbishments? Who wants to start answering Rafael's question? I don't know, maybe from Essen did have a very nice initiative for e-waste refurbishments.
Yes, yes, I talk from the Repair Cafés, and in my examples too, I present the Repair Café from the church community, and we have the feedback from the church community that that is very well, and every citizen is allowed to bring only one electrical appliance for repair on Saturday. Yes, because yeah.
Thank you,
Very
Annika.
well received, yeah.
If I can add something, it's just what Annika said. It's very important that we have the support of these volunteer initiatives in Germany, in Essen, and because yeah, it's a lot of work. It's very time intensive to organize these repair cafes. So it's only yeah, possible if you have these volunteers. So we're really glad that there are these initiatives from church communities.
Thank you, Kristen. I think maybe this can actually also complement the discussion that we had before in the comment of Shelby and Verna holds, because it shows also that all the responsibility does not go only to the municipality and to the city, that there are also very nice initiatives with these volunteers that you have in the Repair Cafés in Essen and different communities. I see that, Victor, you have your hand raised. You wanted to comment something?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this question. It's a great question. Basically, when we see the source of e-waste production, we have in one hand the companies and private sector and industries. For those, the legislation, it's more clear. It's easy. It's easy to build a mandatory legislation or to build strategies, mandatory strategies to circular economy. The challenge is on the second source, which is the citizens, the population in general, the society. So when I guess this is a reality for the majority cities in the world, we have the high income people. Usually we have this inequality, this territorial inequality in the whole cities. We have the richest zone, and we have the low income people, usually on the periphery in the city. So the key of the successful key for these actions is how can we connect, or how can we engage the high income people to donate or to give their waste, electronic waste, to these repair cafés, to this technological repair centering, so that these waste can be repaired to be donated to the poor people. So this is a challenge for us, and how I can make a person get out your home to give your old smartphone to a center. So we have to count with the people awareness, of course, and with the legislation. So these are, I guess, these are the two keys. But of course, we can show some strategies for that. We are trying to build social media to connect and who wants to donate your smartphone or computer, for example, and who needs to receive that. So there are a lot of strategies, a lot of ideas we can move on. So I expect to learn with you, of course, after this webinar.
Thank you very much, Victoria. So this can also lead to a very great conclusion, because this was the objective of this webinar. No, there is no one single solution to this very, very big problem of waste. However, we could be inspired by different good practices. And even if, of course, we cannot replicate all the good practices in the exact same way, because we have different contexts, different situations in our different cities. San Diego, Essen, and Fortaleza are not the same, but in the end, working together, sharing ideas, inspiration, I think that you can see that you faced you're facing more or less the same challenges. And this is also why the IURC program, International Cooperation, in these kind of forums and spaces are very important, and we really like them, because it can also allow other cities to be part in this dialogue and find solutions together, collaborate on these topics. So if nobody wants to add something, I'm gonna start to conclude this webinar, because we're a little bit over the time. So the aim of today's webinar, as I just said, it was to discuss circular economy solutions with concrete example of successful practices and the repairing, recycling, and reuse of electronic waste and other materials. So in this regard, I would like to thank our panelists for their great inputs, their time, and their contribution on creating more sustainable cities. So to conclude, I would like to highlight some key points and new ideas that emerged from the webinar. So as we discussed, one very important point is how to use this great opportunity of circular economy to create new jobs, to include vulnerable people, and to rebalance a bit this inequalities regarding electronic access, and also access to alternative income. Also the importance and the relevance of education and raising awareness to improve the adequate sorting and recycling of waste that can lead to a great reuse, and also the very, very nice initiatives, different pilot project, the Repair Cafés, all the different aspects that have been discussed that can let us know how very small things put together can actually build a very complete, nice picture that can inspire us to move forward. So this was my learnings, my interpretation, but we will also share with you the presentation for you to have a time to read them and to find more learnings in them. Also, you can contact us and follow us on social media, IURC Latin America, to assist to our next webinars and to learn about some news and updates also about the next week's event that we're gonna have. We're gonna post interesting news about that. It was a very great pleasure for me to moderate this webinar and to have you all with us. So I hope that you learned a lot today and you got inspired, and I wish you a happy Tuesday. Please don't forget to answer the very small survey that's gonna pop up on your screen when the webinar ends. as it helps us to have some feedback about our events. So again, thank you so much, and we hope to see you very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.